My name is Brian Wesley Johnson, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Soulivity Live. Hey, my sister, how are you?
This wine, right? Yeah. we might need some more wine for this.
So let's get this party started, y'all. Hey, my sister, mademoiselle.
That is the most amazing introduction I have ever heard.
Oh. Of myself and Madison, Brian Wesley Johnson. Thank you for joining us on Saturday morning. You a life full of passion, purpose, and high quality living. See you next time. Bye. Hello and welcome to another edition of Soulivity Live, everyone. My name is Brian Wesley Johnson, and I am so glad you joined us because once again, you picked the perfect moment to get inspired. We have such a fantastic show. We are speaking with author and clinical psychologist, Dr. Eileen Kennedy-Moore, and today it is all about becoming more aware of maintaining your mental health, especially during these continuing times of the pandemic. But before we begin, I want to tell you about our next exciting Truth and Power series event with partner Beyond Words Publishing. In June, we are holding a special celebration for International Pride Month. We are looking forward to having a candid conversation about the wonderful contributions people of this community have given to our world. Now, watch this space for more announcements of our phenomenal panelists. And speaking of amazing panelists, I want to remind you to watch our last Truth and Power event, where I moderated a celebration for Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We featured such incredible people. We featured Marja van der Risten, host of PBS's series Chronicles, professional artist and painter Janet Chewy, and Dr. Serge Kahili King, author and noted expert on Huna and Hawaiian shamanism. You can watch it now by going to our YouTube channel, where you can also watch replays of all our wonderful TV. Find that by just typing in Soulivity Magazine at YouTube. Let's get to today, though. Our very special guest today is Dr. Eileen Kennedy, author of the book Growing Friendships During the Coronavirus Pandemic. We're talking about today's times of living through a pandemic in the context of National Mental Health Awareness Month. We'll offer support and techniques that will support a holistically healthier life beyond the days of the crisis. So, Dr. Eileen Kennedy-Moore is an internationally published author, psychologist, and trusted expert on parenting and children's feelings and friendships. Her books have been translated into 7 languages. She is a professor for the Great Courses, serves on the advisory board for Parents Magazine, and writes the popular Growing Friendships blog for Psychology Today. With research-based practical solutions and plenty of true-to-life examples presented in more than 200 lighthearted cartoons, her latest book with co-author Christine McLaughlin, Growing Friendships During the Coronavirus Pandemic, is a toolkit for both girls and boys as they make sense of the social order around them. And with that, it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Eileen Kennedy to Soulivity Live. Hello, Eileen.
Hello, Brian. Thanks so much for having me back on the show.
Oh man, I have been looking forward to this for a long time. We had a great time last time with our other guests back. I think was back in April or May of last year.
Don't ask me any time questions. I don't know.
It's been a minute.
Past,
It's just been a minute, just a minute, y'all.
Yeah.
But welcome back. this is such an important topic. We were talking offline about the many things that are happening right now in the world and the stressors that are unprecedented
Yes.
that have caused this uptick in people having trauma, mental trauma, different mental. So, listen, everyone, this is an interactive discussion, right? So, please post any comments or questions to give our live chats, and we are going to respond to them as many as we can during this show. Okay. So, I want to start out by giving some current statistics about where we kind of live in terms of our world. And I found some of these things from the National Council on Mental Health Well-being. 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness. That's 20%. 1 in 20 experience serious mental illness. 1 in 6 youth aged 6 through 17 experience a mental health disorder. And 50%, this one kind of blew me away. 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by the age of 14, and 75% by the age of 24. And lastly, suicide now is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10, it's 10 years old, 34. So we are in some very, very challenging times right now. And I know this month we were celebrating Asian American and Pacific Islander heritage, which was fabulous. But I did not want to get through this month, given my own history in my family around not talk about mental health awareness, the importance of getting support, and seeking out a good therapist and support around this, and keeping yourself mentally healthy. So my first question is kind of a basic. You're a long noted author and therapist, psychologist. What's your own definition of mental health awareness? I know that people might have different ones, but do you have a specific one for yourself?
So when we're talking about mental health, we want to think about our own feelings. Like, am I feeling comfortable in my skin? Am I feeling engaged in my life? And we also want to talk about our relationships and our work. And the work can have a very broad definition, but love and work is, Freud said that is the criteria of life. But I would also add, like, how are we feeling most of the time? And, nobody's singing show tunes every hour of the day, but we want to have most of the time that we feel comfortable, that we feel engaged. We know in those moments when we feel nervous that we can get through them, and that we have those supportive relationships and work and a life that is meaningful and satisfying to us. That is really the goal of therapy, is to help people create a life that is meaningful and satisfying to them.
I love that. That kind of aligns with what we're trying to do in terms of people living their best life, right? That
Exactly. Yes.
which people, I mean, yes, it can include things, house, a car, a job, that kind of thing. But I think at a higher level, it's what you're kind of talking about, Eileen, and that you're happy and you're joyful and you have this kind of baseline, right, where you're kind of sitting here and you're able to continue that based upon what you believe that should be.
Right. Psychologists and philosophers talk a lot about, happiness and what does it mean? And they've come to that there are two main kinds of happiness. One is pleasure and the other is meaning. And we really need both of those, because meaning without pleasure, that's kind of martyrdom. Pleasure without meaning is kind of empty. So we need both of those. You need to have those moments where you're just sitting around laughing. And you need to have that reason that gets you up in the morning.
Right. I love that. I love that two sides because again, that's that, one without the other is like, it's like peanut butter
Doesn't work.
sandwich or
Yeah.
peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like, hey. Um, one question that I think people probably wanted me to ask was, do you find that people are still resistant to being open to seek support, or is this not true? I know, like there's the moniker within the African American community that, oh, you're going to see a psychologist, something wrong, that kind of thing. Has that changed over time in different communities?
So I think there is more openness to seeing therapy, and there are different cultures that are more or less open to it. Like my husband's Australian, and one time his mother said to him, your father and I, we don't hold much with that psychology stuff. So, what are you going to do? So there are definitely holdouts on there. Um, but I think there are also a lot of misunderstandings about and myths about what therapy really is. So some people don't want to go to therapy because, well, it's not that bad, or it doesn't matter. I've lived with this forever. And I think that leads to a lot of unnecessary suffering. If it's not that bad, it may not take that much to make a big difference. And there's also the idea that I ought to be able to handle this on my own. And it's a sign of weakness that if I go see a therapist. But really, seeing a therapist is one of the most courageous things you can do, because it means that you're willing to change. You're willing to do the work and change your life and whatever, address the problems that have been holding you back. Another myth is that, oh, therapy takes forever. No, it really shouldn't. Well, I mean, maybe it does sometimes, but it absolutely shouldn't. So there was one study that found that most people who sought therapy felt noticeably better after 2 months, or about 50% felt noticeably better after 2 months, and 75% felt noticeably better after 6 months. So 50% after 2 months, 75 after 6 months. Now, obviously, if the problem's more complicated, it could take longer. But you should be talking with your therapist about what your goals are and how you're going to meet those goals and how you're progressing to those goals. Those are very important conversations. Another myth about therapy is that, they just sit there and they complain about their parents. No, that is not good therapy. I mean, it may be relevant to talk about your parents because that's kind of where you started, but it's much more important to be talking about what's going on now. What do your relationships look like? What is it that you want to do? What is it that's holding you back from doing what you want to do? We want to be focused on now. And actually, the most important part of therapy is what happens between sessions. Because remember, our goal is to help you build a meaningful and satisfying life to you, whatever that looks like to you. It's very individualized.
Right. That the homework, right? You got to do your homework, you know.
Yeah.
Speaking of this, so let's dive a little bit deeper into this because again, one of my goals, one of my goals for today, speaking of goals, is to help people see that this is not a scary experience. There might be some challenges that you have to do, but going to therapy is an opening experience, right? You become more aware of yourself and what's going on within you may have not known about before. How should
Absolutely. And
yeah yeah how should we view
it's
this? How should we
fun.
view the therapeutic process? I mean, a person goes in and he's there and or she's there. What should our expectations
So it's actually pretty pleasant to have someone hanging on your every word and listening that deeply. So there are a lot of different ways that therapy can help. And one way is just that support. of feeling heard and understood. And that just feels good. But there are other ways too, because sometimes in the process of explaining whatever's going on to the therapist, you make sense of it yourself because I don't know, so you got to tell me. And then explaining it, you realize, or, oh, I didn't see that connection. Sometimes it's the therapist who has that outsider perspective, who can make observations or see connections that maybe you didn't see, or give you information that you didn't have, or or feedback that you're not realizing. So that can also be very useful. And the therapist can also give you new strategies or new ways of thinking about whatever is going on. A big example is anxiety. So a lot of my practice has to do with people who are feeling very anxious. And I think that's our times, right? So our instinct when we're anxious is to back off. It's like, oh, I'm anxious, I should stop. But what we know from research is that the only way out is through.
Wow.
So the metaphor that I give my clients all the time is, can't get used to the water by standing at the edge of the pool. You want to go in toe by toe, that's fine. I'm a toe by toe person myself, but you got to get into the water. And what happens when you stay in the water, right? The water temperature doesn't change, but we get used to it. So that's really important. And it affects parents too, because when we have an anxious child, for example, our instinct is, oh, keep them safe. But here's some interesting research. There was a guy named Jerome Kagan who studied babies, and he noticed that a certain number of babies came out of the womb with what he called an inhibited temperament. And these babies were harder to soothe. They were easily overwhelmed. So other babies, you show them a mobile and they're like, oh, that's interesting. And these babies would be crying and arching their backs because they were just overwhelmed. But here's the interesting part of the research. I don't remember the percentages, but a goodly percentage of those inhibited babies did not become shy toddlers.
Really?
And
Wow.
what he thought was, what happened was they had the parents who little by little encouraged them to do the things that they were scared of, to stay in the water.
Okay.
And that's how they got over it. So temperament is not destiny. Whatever you started with, okay, that's your starting point. But then let's move on from there.
Wow. That's so interesting. Huh. We were talking offline about the importance of children making friendship, and how that piece is so vital to everything that happens after, in terms of young adulthood and adulthood and everything like that. In your blog, you write about 5 friendship skills that children may have forgotten. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Sure. And they're actually, we cover them also in this book, Growing Friendships, A Kid's Guide to Making and Keeping Friends.
Yes.
So this is the in-depth one. But so the first skill, and I'm Brian, how important I think friendship is. And the research backs it up. If you want a kid to feel happier, help them make friends. If you want a kid to be more engaged in school, help them make friends. You want to help them deal with stress better, help them make friends. It's kind of the answer to everything. And of course, that's the model that they're going to carry through to their later adult relationships. So this is so important. And as parents, we want to make opportunity for our kids to be with friends, to help to coach them when they hit those unavoidable rough spots in friendships, and to model, show that friendships are a big value for you as well. So, but back to the 5 skills. So the first one is reaching out. Shy kids have a lot of trouble with this. So here's what happens. Another kid says hi to them, and they look down and they look away. And so they're focused on their own discomfort, but the message that they're sending to the other kids is, I don't like you and I don't want anything to do with you. So that's not what they're feeling, but that's what they're communicating. So with these kids, we might want to teach them how to do a friendly greeting. So you smile, You look the person in the eye, or if that's really hard for them, look them in the forehead, because people can't tell if you're looking them in the forehead or the eyes. Then you say hello and you say the person's name. And if your kid's like, oh, I don't want to do that. So maybe you back up and you start with saying, so tomorrow when you go to camp or you go to school, just count how many greetings you see.
Okay.
And they'll be surprised that it happens all the time.
Wow.
So
Okay.
the unusual behavior is to not greet people. Saying hi is the normal behavior.
Okay.
But sometimes, so another skill is stepping back. So as important as it is to reach out, we also have to know how to step back. And we all know people who come on too strong and are just kind of overwhelming and end up putting people away. Or what I see a lot in my practice is kids who do something annoying. So we all make social mistakes, and that's fine as long as we stop. But my clients are the one who said, or they try to be funny, and they go, "Get it? It's the yellow one. Get it? Get it? The yellow one. Get it?" It's like, stop. So if a joke is not funny, it's not going to become funny.
Right.
Say it 8 more times. So, but what we want to do with these kids is to help them to recognize stop signals. With kids, it's pretty obvious. Quit it. Cut it out. You're being annoying.
Right.
So they have to pick up on that and then stop. Now, for some kids, particularly say an ADHD kid, that's going to be harder because their brakes aren't fully developed. So we might want to give them something to do instead. And they could, cross their arms. They could sit on their hands. They could pretend their tongue is stuck to the roof of their mouth with peanut butter. Or they could, sometimes giving them a phrase like, okay, I'm going to stop now, to be useful. So it's a little unusual, but at least they're stopping. And it gives them that extra breaking room, because if they don't stop, they're basically saying to the other kid, I don't care what you're feeling. I'm just doing this. So that's not a good way. So a third social skill is blending in, which means being able to join a group. And here what we talk about is researchers have found that there's a very specific sequence of how kids join a group. And that sequence is watch and then blend. So watch what the kids are doing and then slide into the action without interrupting.
Wow. Okay.
So we adults, and when you know that sequence, you see it all the time. So we adults tend to tell the kids, go over there and tell them, hi, can I play? Don't do that, because for kids, this is really rude. Because think about it, they're stopping the action, and the other kids have to turn around, look at your kid, decide if they want to let them in. And that's just too much of an opening for the mischievous kids to say, no, you can't play, ha, ha, ha. So instead, watch what they're doing, and then you can slide in with a compliment, or you can, bring supplies if they're building something, or go stand at the end of the line and take your turn. You don't want to interrupt the ongoing play. This applies also for the older kids with conversations, and even for adults. So let's say there's a whole bunch of kids and they're talking about the latest collectible card, and all the kids are being enthusiastic about it. And then our boy comes over and says, well, collectible cards are really stupid. I mean, they're just cardboard printed with pictures. This is like, there's a little song going on, la, 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 and our goes, it's a bad note, right? It's a sour note that derails the conversation. So, or another example, all the kids are complaining about the social studies test, and our girl comes over and says, well, I thought it was easy. Just messing up the song. So, but this is important though. She should not pretend she's stupid to fit in, but she's got to match the emotional tone. So she could complain, I can't believe there were 4 essays, or whatever it is. So they're complaining, she's got to play. And they're enthusiastic, you got to find something enthusiastic or shift it to something that you can. Oh, and I also like this other one. And then you're matching the tone.
These last few, I want to make sure that people really get into understanding why these are very important. What I'm hearing you say is these are skills that are building empathy, right? This is not
Absolutely.
an
You nailed it,
automatic
Brian.
skill. There are adults who don't
Right.
have empathy. They have not worked that muscle. So by you identifying, by a child learning how to identify how other children are feeling, they build empathy for other people.
You nailed it,
All
because
right.
what
Yay.
fuels the development, what fuels the development from those toddler love the one you're with friendships to the more intimate and lasting friendships of teenagers is an increasing ability to understand someone else's perspective. And this is actually a really important way that parents can help.
Okay.
So let's say your kid comes home and there was some kind of rough spot with a
Okay.
friendship. Start first with empathizing.
Mhm.
Because you don't want to go in when a kid is feeling vulnerable. That's not the time to say, well, didn't I tell you? And so start first with empathizing. You're really upset because of this, or it hurt your feelings when that, or you wish she hadn't done that, or it's hard for you when they do the other thing.
Mhm.
So empathize first, but then in a very gentle way, you can try to help them give a glimpse into what the other person might have been thinking or feeling. One of the things that we know is from research, is that people who are prone to anger tend to assume they did it out of deliberate meanness.
Mm.
That usually isn't true. So there's one technique that I use with kids all the time, which I call the maybe game.
Okay.
So let's say Samantha didn't play with you at recess today. Maybe she's doing it because she hates your guts and she wants you to suffer, but probably not. So let's think about what are some other reasons why she might have been playing with someone else. So maybe she just wanted to do a different activity today. Maybe she didn't see you today. Maybe she just hadn't spent time with that one and she wanted to do that, but you're welcome to join. So the more maybes we can come up with,
Mhm.
the less likely that, she's doing it out of deliberate meanness seems.
This is good. These are really cool.
So the number one reaction I get to my book, Growing Friendships, is this applies to adults. Yes, it does. Because the social skills are not something, we
You're
don't
reading
learn
my
at age
mind.
9 and then we're done.
You're reading my mind. Because that was going to be my next question. Like, I'm thinking that, okay, yeah, you might have not practiced these 5 things as a kid, but that doesn't mean that you can't do them now. Like, you can practice doing these things as an adult. And I love them. Everybody, listen, make sure that you go to Dr. Kennedy-Moore's website, check out her blog. I was reading this, Eileen, like, that's so good. And I'm like going to the next article and the next article and then the next article. And I'm like, okay, I have to get some other work done or I'm just going to read this stuff here. It's really insightful, really fascinating.
Thank you, Brian.
That last one around letting go to accept friends.
Yeah, so the fourth skill was speaking up, which we need to do in a way that's respectful to ourselves and others.
Yeah.
And then the last one is letting go.
Yeah.
And that's really about not moving past rough spots, not hanging on to the bitterness, because of course we know that hurts us more than anybody else. I had a kid once who came in and said to me, I was talking with the mom and the kid, and the mom said, well, why don't you play with the boy down the road? And the kid said, no, because 2 years ago in travel soccer, he never passed the ball. Is it possible that maybe the kid has grown up? So,
I mean, how many times have you heard adults speak that way? Right? The something that happened 10 years, 15 years ago, and you don't want to even associate with that person anymore because of that one thing. It reminds me of, I know it's something that I've said before on my show, where it was Oprah Winfrey and Whoopi Goldberg. And they had done together The Color Purple. And it wasn't that anything happened. It was just that, I guess, their lives got busy and either one, they just kind of lost contact. And then the thought came in, well, I must have done something wrong. 25 years went by and they did not speak. It was
Oh,
not
that's so
like
sad.
negative. They were embodying something that they thought was wrong and
Yeah.
that they did to hurt the other person. And it was the 25-year
Uh-huh.
anniversary of Color Purple. And they both were on there, and they both kind of said that this might be a little awkward because they hadn't really spoke. And they revealed to each other that they thought that they had done something to offend the other person, and that's why the other person didn't call,
Yeah.
because they loved that person so
Yeah.
much. And
Oh,
they did not speak. And it was like, wow. Let it
yeah.
go,
So
y'all.
how human and how sad.
Wow,
You know,
let it
that's,
go. Let it go.
yeah,
And we got to teach our kids
absolutely.
that too, but the other principles as well. Listen, we're going to take a short pause. But when we come back, I want to move into, a little bit more about, maybe, we can dive a little bit more into, some misunderstandings about therapy as well. But then how do you find a good therapist, right? And then maybe some other resources for people who may be in a certain economic situation and they might not be able to afford therapy. What resources are out here to help them? And so we're going to take 2 minutes, and we'll be right back, everybody. See you soon.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame. Living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
Difficult time these days. Do you really want to sit in a doctor's waiting room when you feel unwell? There is a better way. Introducing telemedicine by Teledoc. Cost-effective access to a nationwide network of board-certified doctors wherever you are. How does it work? Let's say you or someone in your household doesn't feel well. Just call the toll-free number to speak with licensed board-certified physicians via phone, video call, or chat, whichever you prefer. Average doctor response time is 10 minutes. Majority of the time, the doctor can diagnose your problem and even call in a prescription if medically needed. With our included RX valet service, you can even save money on that prescription and have it delivered to your home. But what if your ailment is more of an emotional well-being? When struggles fall outside of the realm of physical health, Teledoc Behavioral is there for you. You're able to schedule a convenient time to connect with a licensed mental health professional that can discuss your most pressing non-physical related problems. And just like the Teledoc service, the same kind of prescription benefits are included when medically needed. All services have no visit fees and are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days per year. A better you without ever leaving your home. Welcome to Health Perks.
Here we go. And we are back with our resident clinical psychologist, parental and child development expert, Dr. Eileen Kennedy-Moore. I just threw that in there because I'm claiming it, that's what's going to happen with us.
I'd be happy to, Brian.
I wanted to begin this segment with some additional statistics from the APA, the American Psychological Association. And this is specific to what's been happening now. We were talking about this offline before the show. about the pandemic and the effects of the pandemic on our mental health, as well as some other things that are like out there too. The escalation in violence against African Americans, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and now with some things in terms of some political groups, there's more violence and re-upping of hatreds against Jewish people now, and even Palestinian people. I mean, there's a lot going on in the world right now that is, that's taxing. More than 4 in 10 adults, 43%, report the pandemic has had a serious impact on their mental health, up 37% in 2020. Guys, that's incredible. That's a third jump. 59% of younger adults are more likely to report a serious impact on their mental health due to the pandemic. More than half, 54%, of 30 to 44-year-olds also report a serious mental health impact. And fewer older adults, 24%, report serious mental health impacts. So our older community is less likely to report it and just internalize it or embody it. And so Eileen, you were talking about earlier that your caseload has exploded.
Oh, it's so I'm seeing 30% above my normal maximum, and I'm getting 3 phone calls a day from people that I just can't see. I just physically cannot get them in, which hurts my heart, which is why, as we were saying, that I have been cranking out YouTube videos. I have been cranking out blog posts. I've been doing a lot of speaking. We wrote the free coronavirus ebook on top of my, my regular books. So I've just been trying to do as much as I can, as broadly as I can, a lot of media stuff, because the need is so great. Damn, what a year we've been through. This has been so hard. And, so for the pandemic, because we've been like stripped of all our normal coping strategies. You hang out with friends. Nope. Yeah. Go to the gym. Nope. Yeah. Get together with family. Nope. It's just, everything is harder. And
Right.
With work, a lot of people have lost jobs. A lot of people have gone to jobs and felt terrified and unsafe. A lot of people have been trying to work from home while also doing homeschooling their kids because it's all virtual. Or they're dealing with anxious kids who maybe they can go back to school, but the kids are freaking out because they're scared. It's just been hard. And so if you had a little bit of tendency towards anxiety, that's up. If you had a little bit of tendency towards depression, that's up. And just everyone is feeling the strain. Wow. So those statistics don't surprise me at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And everyone, I mean, thank goodness communities are starting to get vaccinated and that kind of thing.
Right.
But we also have
as you mentioned, the other layer of
exactly
trauma is, I keep saying to my college kids, this is not normal.
No,
this is, no. People don't normally storm the Capitol.
No.
This is what they remember. And, the upsurge in all different kinds of hate. And we want to think that we're getting better. But, even as a white woman, I can't help notice that, damn, there's a Black man shot in the back every week.
Week.
It's just
the number of mass shootings. Everyone, yeah. Listen, there's I think the latest statistic, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty close. Since January 1st, there have been 234 mass shootings. That's literally at least one a day. So all of this is bombarding us, right, Eileen? And that it is so vital, again, for us to do things and have techniques to make sure and support, to first make sure that we are aware of the level of anxiety or stress or trauma that we may be going to. And then two, if that's the case, if you know you're experiencing this disruption in your life, get help.
Mm-hmm.
Get help.
Right. And you know, I think it starts first with just like the story you told about Oprah. We tend to blame ourselves. So I think first we have to say, well, no wonder you're feeling stressed with all this chaos going on in the world. No wonder. So stop blaming yourself, and let's think about, or saying it's your weakness that you're feeling this way, and start thinking about how can you care for yourself. And I would start with the basics. Good sleep. You know, we usually make sure our kids go to bed on time, but how many of us are up too late doom scrolling
Right.
on things? So try to turn the gadgets off at least an hour before bedtime so that you have a little bit of time to clear your head. Look for your relationships. You know, call that person that you haven't talked to in a long time. Try to get together, because I don't know if it's pheromones or body heat, but it just feels better to see someone in person than it does on screen. Do the things that fuel you. So I take an art class that I just love, and you know that's my way of replenishing. Get exercise. You know, you don't have to be an athlete. Walking is fine, but get outside, get some exercise, and do all these good things that you know are healthy. And that's the starting place that we want to be,
Right.
because nothing's going to work beyond if we don't have that.
Right.
So, and then if you find that things are just not getting better or even getting worse, that's the time to really reach out and think about, who can I talk to about this? It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength that you're willing to seek help.
Right. Right. For those of us who, and we're going to be posting some resources to our chats for people that if you are experiencing a mental health emergency or trauma, please reach out, use those resources, sign up for something, and get the help that you need. But for those of us who may be thinking about it, what should we look for? I mean, because this is another important thing, right? That can also be a barrier, right? Where, oh, well, if it doesn't look exactly like this, then I'm not going to go because I'm not going to feel comfortable. And it's literally this analytic process. So talk to us a little bit about that.
So we want to think about both the practical side and the emotional side of it. On the practical side, you want to go to somebody who is knowledgeable and experienced with whatever your situation is, and who knows the latest research. So I was talking to a mom on the phone the other day that her kid was going to a therapist and it just wasn't working, and the kid was anxious, and the therapist was just saying, well, you just need to do a lot of deep breathing. Can I tell you how many kids I've had who've come in and said, well, I hate breathing? So it doesn't work with kids that well. Some will do it, but it's also this person hasn't read the research because she doesn't understand that the key to anxiety is to get in the water and stay in the water. And the latest research is you don't have to do any strategies. You just have to do little by little the things that scare you, and you get used to it. So by her saying, well, you got to breathe and be relaxed, she's telling the kid, you can't do anything unless you're relaxed. No, what I talk about is bravery. Is you need to do things even though you're scared. And that anxiety is not a stop signal. It's a sign that you're doing something new and challenging. I had a teenager who was telling me, oh, I'm really scared about doing the track team. And I said, congratulations, I'm so happy for you, because I wish for you many moments where you're like, this is scary, but I'm doing it anyway. So the person needs to be informed. They also, practically, it has to work in terms of finances and accessibility and time, whatever your schedule is. So that's really important. But we also have to think about the emotional side. And here you want to trust your gut and ask yourself, how do I feel when I'm with this person? Does the person feel genuinely interested and respectful? Do I feel comfortable asking questions, and is the therapist open to answering those questions? And can we talk about what I want and how we're going to get there, because you want to feel like the therapist is on your side, and reaching your goals rather than they have their own agenda. And the most important question is, do you walk away from that initial phone call or that initial session with a sense of hope? That's really important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
love that. That hope, right? Because that optimism is a driver for the future, right? It leads to another
Exactly.
question that I had,
Exactly.
because I think sometimes we have unrealistic expectations about what will or will not happen, specifically during the first section, right? Where,
Yeah.
oh, I went and I don't feel this is not fixed. Where it goes
Yeah.
to the whole you take an aspirin or a Tylenol and the headache goes away, right? Talk to us a little bit about that part too, because I want to make sure that listen, if you're feeling a certain way and you're going to seek the support and you feel as though this is what you need to do, allow yourself to be open around, number one, going to the session, but maybe a commitment, right? Because some of this is part of the commitment to yourself.
Exactly. So the first session is kind of the therapist getting to know you and you getting to know the therapist and kind of judging, are we a good fit? And that's a very personal thing to figure out. So after the first session, I think you should walk out with a sense of hope, or like, okay, I could work with this person. We understand the path forward. We agree on what the goals and the means, of how we're going to get there. But you're not going to get instant change. And because a lot of it is what I said about how do you apply what you've talked about in therapy into your life. And the homework could be as little as noticing, or it might be trying out a certain coping strategy, or it might be talking to somebody in your life in a different way. So a lot of times people think that they have to have these relationship discussions. And basically what they do is they just blast people about, well, you always do this and you never do that. That doesn't help relationships. So a better way to communicate is to say, I need you to blank because blank. That's easier for the person to hear. And that's going to get what we want. I had a situation recently where a 27-year-old kid wrote this hate-filled email to his parents about, you were the worst parents ever. And it just ripped the parents apart. What is that? What's the good of that? And instead, you want to say, I need you to blank because blank. So communication is not about spewing. It's about talking in a way that the other person can hear and that we can move forward in a good way, because whatever's done, it's done. And maybe you say, that was really hurtful to me when you made that joke about whatever it was. I need you to not tease me about that from now on, because that's just an area of sensitivity for me. And the other person can say, okay, that's easier to hear than, you're the worst person ever, and I hate you. That's nothing. That's not communication. That's spewing.
Right. It's like the true or false. Talking to your family and friends is the same thing as seeing a clinical professional.
So it's, yeah, and that is false, because the professional has the training and the knowledge and the observer's perspective,
right,
that can help you move forward in a good way. So I would really love to share one coping strategy that I actually use a lot,
absolutely,
myself with your. Okay, so let's try this together. So put your hand on your chest. And I didn't invent this. This is from Kristen Neff, who has done some wonderful work. So put your hand on your chest, and I want you to notice the warmth and the weight between your hand and your chest. And you may want to try two hands. and see which one feels better for you. I like one hand, but some people like two hands. So either way is fine. And just really tune into that warmth and the weight, the connection between your hand and your chest. And now I want you to have 3 thoughts. So the first thought is you tell yourself, this is a moment of stress, or this is a moment of suffering. And you just kind of acknowledge whatever is going on in this difficult moment. You just notice it. Then the second thought is you tell yourself, stress is part of life, or everyone suffers. And with this comment, what you're doing is you're recognizing the universality of suffering, because that's what binds us together, really, as humans. Everybody's got their struggles. And it's not a contest to see whose is worse. Everybody's got their pain. I don't care how together they look on the street. Everybody's got their pain and their difficulties. So you just recognize that you are not alone in that suffering. And the last thought is you say to yourself, may I be kind to myself. So this is a moment of stress. Stress is part of life. Everyone suffers. May I be kind to myself. And this is an exercise in what's called self-compassion. If you want to read more about it, Kristen Neff does a lot of it. But I think it's a very beautiful thing. You can do it anywhere, anytime, just kind of notice it.
Wow.
And it's a way to treat ourselves gently in these difficult moments.
Wow.
And it has been. It's been a very difficult 15 months. And we're not out of the woods, Things are going to continue to be difficult. Getting better, I hope.
Yeah,
but
I
it's
mean,
not
and again,
easy.
it's a process. It's doing these kinds of things on an ongoing basis, everyone. Do your meditations, do processes like this one, seek support. Before we get out of here, I wanted to make sure that we tell people about 2 things that you have going. First is your free ebook, which is the Growing Friendships During the Coronavirus Pandemic. That's available if you go to Beyond Words or Dr. Eileen Kennedy-Moore's website, which is EileenKennedyMoore.com. But Eileen, you also have an additional book, which is about growing friendships, that's available for purchase. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. This is called Growing Friendships, A Kid's Guide to Making Keeping Friends. And Brian, I wish I could get this in the hands of every child, because it talks about those 5 friendship skills: reaching out, stepping back, blending in, speaking up, and letting go, which are the foundation for relationships. And kids have been missing this. They lost 15 months. Even the kids who were going to school, it wasn't normal school for a lot of them. And they really, really need the support. Also, I don't know how many social skills books you've read, but most of them are very, preachy and boring. This one is not. So it has little cartoon vignettes, of common friendship problems. And then the narrator comes in and gives these research-based tips. And then wandering through the text are this cat and dog characters that make goofy suggestions like, he should sniff their butts. So it's very childish and kid-friendly. But it's got a lot of very practical information that they can use.
Well, this whole show has been practical and enlightening and inspiring. Thank you so much. Would you come back?
My pleasure. I'd love to.
Yes, because again, we have a while to go to get fully out of where we're at today, and I think I want to give people as many resources as we possibly can to support them, right? In having healthy lives, more fulfilling lives. It's part of our mission here to do that. And so you coming back and sharing these kind of techniques and tips and practical information for parents and kids and adults, because that was helpful for me too, is so important. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
All right, everyone. So before we get out of here, just a couple of housekeeping things. Number one, and most importantly, we posted some resources to our live chats. One is samhesa.gov, which is a free resource for referrals to mental health resources around the country. Just click on the site and it will take you there. Also, we have a partnership with Health Perks, and Health Perks is a Teledoc service that offers many wide-reaching health support services, but specifically in this case, access to mental health support services. It's reasonable. I think plans start at like $17 a month, and you get access to doctors, psychologists, or that it's all included in that price. So if you were thinking that you could not afford to talk to somebody because your insurance or that kind of thing, here's again another resource that you can use to get the help that you need. So go check it out and get that help and that support so you can have a healthier life for yourself. Remember, don't miss, we got coming up in June, our next Truth and Power event brought to you by Soulivity Magazine and Beyond Words Publishing. We're going to be celebrating International Pride Month. Remember that you can save the date by actually going to our YouTube channel. And you'll be getting more up-to-date information about the event itself and our upcoming panel. Also, please follow us on social media. You can learn about upcoming shows and events, as well as our amazing giveaways. We've got a giveaway going on right now that if you write us a review on our Facebook page, you could win one of our fabulous Soulivity hoodies. So go there now, sign up, and you could be a winner. Also, please go check out our Go Shop. We feature vendors from across the globe selling inspirational products for your soul. From books to beauty items, we've got something for you. So I want to once again thank our guest, Dr. Eileen Kennedy-Moore, for being on the show today. Remember, her book, Growing Friendships During the Corona Pandemic, is a free ebook available by Beyond Words Publishing. You can go to her website, EileenKennedyMoore.com, for that, and to also purchase her book, Growing Friendships, which is a fantastic resource for parents and children during this time. And until next time, these shows always go by so fast. Until next time, on behalf of myself and Dr. Eileen Kennedy-Moore, this is Brian Wesley Johnson saying thank you for joining us. And of course, I'm wishing you a life full of passion, purpose, and high quality living. Until next time. My name is Brian Wesley Johnson, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Soulivity Live.
Hey, my sister, how are you?
It's the lens, right? Yeah. we might need some more wine for this.
So, let's get this party started, y'all. Hey, my sister, mademoiselle.
That is the most amazing introduction I have ever heard.
Oh.
Of myself and Madison, Brian Wesley Johnson, thank you for joining us on Saturday morning. A life full of passion, purpose, and high quality living. See you next time.